start.
Hello everyone, we're Team 12 and would like to present our analysis of the IBM data as well. And we went into a bit of a different direction from the previous group. So when we looked at the different characteristics that employees have that might lead to attrition, we thought about ones that the business can directly influence and not on the personal data, because it's kind of dangerous to go in that direction and discriminate against people who are divorced. That's kind of not what we wanted, so we looked at things we could improve in the company to reduce attrition. For that, we looked at the years of the current manager, the overtime, environment satisfaction, business travel, and monthly income as variables that we can change in order to improve our attrition. For that, we created a predictive model that can show our attrition. And yeah, as you can see, we had a kind of a pig guideline to see what the ROC of our attrition actually is. And when looking at this, we found that a tree model is actually less accurate and more expensive than going with the logistic regression, which is why we inputted our values into logistic regression.
And that was a great choice. Now the output to talk about. So we found these 5 key variables, the most impactful, and we achieved 77 ROC rate, which was good enough for us. So we put 2 high red flags on 2 variables, overtime and business travel. This numbers mean 3.74 is the time. It's times that the likelihood of the attrition increases when the employee works overtime. Same goes with business travel. It's almost twice as big of likelihood, other variables the same, when the employee has to travel for business. Then good things that we found out is that monthly income increasing by $1 would decrease the likelihood of person leaving almost by 70%. But we're gonna go through each variable one by one, not just now. We're gonna, as we know, we can increase salary, and that would actually give the biggest impact. We want to dig a bit deeper to somehow engineer business recommendations. So what we found first was years with the current manager. There are 2 outliers. One is for 14 years. The average is the highest, but that's because not that many people actually spend 14 years with one manager, and if one person leaves, that means that, you know, the average would jump high. What we actually want to point out is the left, thank you, which is the least years spent with your manager. Then second impactful variable is overtime. Again, on average, 30% of employees who would work overtime would leave, and where only 10% of those who doesn't have this overtime will. And Marcel would continue with our insight.
Thanks, Lisa. So we're keep talking about some variables that we found very interesting in the model that we built in terms of insights. And one of the environment satisfaction measurements is very interesting because we're seeing here the environment satisfaction from the worst, that's the far left, to the best environment ratings for satisfaction for the employees, for the work environment, at the right. And one of the things that we noticed is that there is a attrition rate that's bigger in the first rate, in the first tier, in the first group. And if you invest to increase satisfaction, maybe you couldn't get the return that you were expecting, like a linear return. For spending a lot of cash to turning a 1 to a 4, maybe you wouldn't get the return that you were expecting in terms of reduced employee attrition. So maybe there's another place that you could spend better your money, like improving salaries for employees instead of buying fancy puffs, for instance. Another interesting thing is business travel. Not only because people spend too much time on airplanes or cars, but this is money for the company as well, because business travel is expensive. And one of the things that we just discovered in the analysis is that there's people who travel a lot, and those people have a rate of attrition per employee that's bigger than the non-travelers or the people who travel rarely. So this is another insight that's really interesting to observe that, and we could bring up some recommendations about this one in the next slide. So finally, for key takeaways, we would like to recommend the company to invest on a program for financial rewards for good performers. We discovered that good salaries are really good for keeping good employees in the company. We don't want the bad ones, right? But the good employees are good to be kept in the company with a good financial reward program. Second, it's important to have a work-life balance in the company. It's really key. We identified that overtime is really important. So managers need to track overtime. We need to educate managers across a company to track overtime and avoid or reduce the off-work schedules, because overtime is
for these people. Wow, perfect time. No questions, really? Okay. So I'll ask one question. Besides stating that I like the pig. You guys made a third recommendation, because I could definitely see the first two in your presentation before, because I saw the coefficients that Lisa described. So I can connect those two, and I could see that, financial rewards, work-life balance, because we were talking about overtime, et cetera, et cetera. But now sharing business travel, maybe I've lost it, or maybe I got distracted. Can you take it back to your analysis, or maybe coefficient, or maybe charts?
So that was one of the highest coefficients as well.
Good.
It's just also, it might be the subject of further analysis, why it causes such increase of the likelihood of attrition, whether it's the person who has a family and doesn't want to travel at all, or it's just because the person would travel alone all the time and don't have the teamwork and the team with this person. So it's up for the managers to take the notes and to actually learn about their employees more.
Okay, good. So I've missed that one coefficient on the first slide. Good, okay, my bad.
And our idea to share the travel is just to kind of homogenize the frequency that people travel in the company, to not overwhelm people that travel too much and maybe could leave the company because they are just on the road.
Makes sense. So not only did you verify it with the data, but you also saw some business sense and taken action based on your data. So maybe there is more reasoning behind such a coefficient, right? Cool. Very good. Okay, lovely. Thanks, guys.